So now we're going to start the next session. So now that you've heard all about how to create your content and how to create those amazing study sets from Amalia and how to really get started on the site, I'm going to take you through the different activities and study modes that we have available to you. Share the screen. Cool. And so presenting also at the end of this session is going to be Nathan Hall. He's actually a teacher at Douglas College in New Westminster, Canada. And so he's going to talk a bit more about the teacher perspective, but I'm really going to start off by just talking about what those basic activities are that are available to you, so you can start, really sharing your sets with students, having them study and figure out ways to, really show these sets in your classroom. Cool. Just to introduce myself, my name is Claire. I'm a marketing intern here at Quizlet, and I'm a rising fourth year at the University of Chicago, where I'm studying neuroscience and psychology. And here at Quizlet, I'm helping out with supporting the marketing team and spreading the word and helping to organize this entire Unconference. Cool. So on the Quizlet site, when you go to your set page, I'll do a demo at the end of this, but you'll see the different Quizlet activities that are available to you. So every time you create a study set, you have these different options and different ways to really differentiate learning and customize learning experience by being able to click into all of these different activities. So that, ranges from independent study activities with like flashcards, write, spell, test, and then some more game style activities where you'll actually have like a group leaderboard where you can see, how long it takes you to do each activity. And those are things like match and gravity. And so what's really great about this is there's lots of different ways that students can really figure out the ways that they learn best and the ways that they want to study. So often it can be really great to start off with flashcards, right? So flashcards are kind of the most basic level of studying where you're really just going through the material and reviewing it. This is just like your physical flashcard, except it's now virtual. So that means that you can take it to go, you can use it on a mobile app, you can use it on the website, and it's a really great way for students to become familiar with the new material. The really great thing about flashcards as well is that teachers often have used this as a way to collaborate, to increase collaboration by projecting it out to the whole class, right? So you could present your flashcards to your classroom, have your class kind of go through it and review the content, and that way, you can go through a whole class review, but it can also then, students can have it to take home with them to study when they're trying to prepare for a test or prepare for the next day. We also have spell mode. This can be really great for language teachers. We know that we have a lot of language teachers on our site. So in spell mode, the aim is really just type what you hear. So you'll hear the term or definition, and then you'll be asked to actually type exactly what you're hearing. So this is a really great way to practice spelling, and is really useful for language learning, vocabulary. And what's also really great about this is that if a student does get the answer wrong for any reason, the term will be corrected for them. So this gives them a chance to be able to review it and make sure that they're really mastering that material and getting it right. Next, we also have write mode. Write mode is really great for really testing that mastery of the content. So maybe once a student has gone through the flashcards, has, prepared with the flashcards, understands the material there, they're now asked to actually generate the answer. So this can be great as a way of testing your knowledge to see how they're doing. And as you can see here in the screenshot, you also can see how many you're getting correct. And that way, that's a great way for students to be able to monitor what they're learning, what they might be, more challenged by, and really understand what they're studying. We also have test mode. Test mode is really great in that it allows students to actually generate practice tests. This can also be useful to teachers to generate a practice test that maybe you'll give to your students. And you can also even print these tests as a way for students to practice or have a quick worksheet to use. And this allows for a variety of different question types. I'll show that a bit more in our demo. But over here, you can see there's a matching section. There's also usually a write section and true or false. So that gives, different options for students to practice the material and see it in new ways. With match and gravity, these are our more like game style activities, and these can be really fun for actually, fostering competition in the classroom and motivating students. It's like a race to the clock with match terms. You can compete against others. Over here, you can see one of our great tweets from a teacher. When you open up your email to see your student bump you off first place on the Quizlet match leaderboard, we'll never hear the end of it, right? So students are so excited to be, beating one another and getting, the fastest time on this. And that can be a really great way to motivate students. Maybe one student beats someone else by 1 second, and then the next student now wants to beat them. And so this can be a really great way to really make learning engaging and really exciting for students. And then lastly, we have our Learn mode, which is one of my favorite study modes. It was actually created by using our data that we had on how students were studying, and is really therefore maximized to create the most adaptive and best way for students to learn. So it's an adaptive study plan, and will actually guide students through their studying. So on the mobile app, for example, they can indicate when their test is coming up, and then the app will actually give them notifications for studying. And with Learn mode, what's really great is it'll really track students throughout that studying. So it'll start off with some easier questions as students are gaining mastery of the material. And as they're doing, better and better on it, it'll get harder and harder as they're continuing to study and continuing to master that material. So this is a really great way for students to, learn those study skills and really practice the material that's given to them. So now that I've given a quick overview of all of those different study modes, I want to show what it actually looks like on the Quizlet site. So over here, if we open one of those study sets, like Amalia showed, here we have a biology set, for example, and you'll see at the bottom that you have, all the different terms and definitions. So here we have chemical change, a change that alters the makeup of the elements or molecules of a substance. And then if I go, sorry, it was filtered by starred, there we go. So now you can see all of the terms and definitions. And so then up here at the top, you have all those study activities that are available to you. And so here you have learn, flashcards, write, spell, and you can click into any of these and start studying immediately. So if I want to start with flashcards, I'll go into the flashcards mode. And then you'll see here you have your definition, and then you can either hit the space bar or click the card to flip it and see the term. So this can be a really great way to go through the material. You also have some more options over here on the side. So you can shuffle the material, and you can also go to options, and then you can answer with definition or terms. So if you want to switch up what's prompting you while you're studying, you can do that. You can also turn the audio on or off if you want to have the audio playing as well. And also you have that starred option. So if you've starred particular terms and definitions that you think are more challenging, you can choose to study just those ones. Go back. I'll take you through match, for example. Match is really fun. So here you need to make everything disappear by dragging items onto one another. So we'll start the game. And so let's say if we see living creatures that are too small to see with the naked eye, and I know that's microorganisms, I'll put that on there and they'll disappear. Over here you can see the timing that's going on. So this is timing how quickly I can do it, right? So students often are, trying to scramble to really get this done quickly and beat one another on their times. And once you've completed this, it'll come up with a leaderboard there. Once again, you have options to select, only starred ones or study all of them. And then we also have write and spell. So with the write mode, you'd be asked to type the answer and then answer that. If I get it incorrect, it will actually give me what the correct answer is and ask me to copy it, so that way I can practice the material once again. And then it'll track what I'm getting incorrect and what I am getting correct. The last one I want to show you guys is test mode. This can be really helpful for teachers in having students kind of generate a practice test. So here you can see, you have your written questions up at the top, and then your matching questions and multiple choice. So students can go through this and practice with this, and then you also have the option to print the test. So that way, if you want to print it for your students, you can do that. And then you have additional options here. So if you want to only include certain question types for your students, include more questions, show the images, anything like that, you can do those different options to really customize it for you. So that's basically all I have for a quick overview on really what those different study modes are. I want to send it over now to Nathan Hall, who's going to talk a bit more about, the teacher perspective and how he uses these different study modes and the different ways that he uses Quizlet in the classroom. He's a real EdTech pro, and he's done tons of presentations, so I know he'll do amazing, and he has some really creative ways to talk about Quizlet. Take it away, Nathan.
Thank you very much, Claire. I hope everybody can hear me all right. So I'm just going to switch to share my screen here so you can have a chance to see this. All right. So first off, I just want to do a quick introduction about who I am and what I'm doing. And so I have two hats at Douglas College here. I am both an instructor for an English language program, so we're preparing students for the academic program. So we teach them English language skills, academic language skills as they're moving into the regular program. And also I'm a teacher trainer, so I'm teaching new teachers on how to teach ESL students. So this is for adult education. And so I have kind of two hats that I'm constantly wearing, and I actually use Quizlet in both of those situations. So hopefully I can give a chance to be able to talk about how I use it in both of those areas. So if you've come to kind of get some ideas, I'm hoping that I can share some new ideas for you. If it's not new for you, I apologize. I try to come up with some creative ways that you could use this, but I also use some that I use on a daily basis. So just to get things started off, first off, if you wanted to collect all of these things in one place, so if you go to this website, quizlet.nathanhall.ca, it'll actually have a list of all of the things that I'm going to be talking about today, and you can actually click on those and see the Quizlet sets that I have set up for those. Plus, I will, as we get on later on, I'll gather some other resources, maybe those things that come up from the questions, and also the video later on as it's recorded. So keep that URL at quizlet.nathanhall.ca, and hopefully we'll be able to share some of those resources as we're going along. So first off, I just wanted to talk about with my English language students. So one of the things that this semester I started using it quite a bit with my students is pronunciation. And so with the pronunciation, what I've done is I've taken and I have this the regular word, and then I have the phonetic spelling in the definition. So I have the term, which is just a regular word, and then I had the phonetic spelling over in the definition side. And when I was first doing that, it was really funny because what was happening was we were getting, keep getting back here on my screen. So anyway, what was happening was it was trying to do this pronunciation. There we go, crashed. Hopefully we'll be able to get that back up there in a second here. Anyway, what I was going to say was I'd had the audio set so that it would do automatic speech. And the problem with that, what was happening was it was, I was getting the automatic speech trying to take the phonetic spelling and trying to do that. And so it was not working as well as we had hoped. Yeah, the phonetic spelling was getting all messed up. And so I'm just going to switch over here to this part. The phonetic spelling was getting all messed up. And so what I did is I took the teacher account, and with the teacher account, what you can do is you can actually record your audio instead. So what I was doing was I was doing the same on the term side as I was on the definition side. I just recorded my own audio, and then that way it didn't try and interpret all those IPA symbols into some sort of weird text sometimes. So then what I was doing is my students could actually go through it and listen to the pronunciation, and then they could do the matching of the phonetic spelling to the word. And so just give you a quick look at what that looks like here. If I switch over to my pronunciation one to match, what happens here is you get the phonetic spelling, and then you also get the other word. And so then they can actually do the matchup that way. So instead of having a definition, I was using the same word, but I was just using the phonetic spelling instead. And then that allowed them to do the matchup for how to read phonetic spelling, because we were going through how to read a dictionary, so that when you get to a dictionary term, you can learn how to use pronunciation just by using the IPA. And so that was what I did with that. And so there's some ways that you can actually match up your words with that. So for example, if I wanted to do knife, it takes off. So, all right, so that's in pronunciation practice. Now, the next thing I wanted to talk about is how I use it for collocations. So for those who don't understand the term collocations, what you're doing is you're taking words that normally go together, and what you do is you try and find typical word combinations. So for example, if I have the word station, what is a word that normally goes together with station? So we have things like radio station, railway station, bus station. And so we have words that normally go together. And so I was trying to help work with collocations. And so what I did with this one here, just to give you an idea by showing my flashcards, is I had words like train and power and radio. Well, what goes normally together with those? As I said before, station. And so I had on the term side, I had the word, and then on the definition side, I had a list of all of the normal word collocations that go together with that. What I liked about that was it worked really well with Quizlet Live. And so when I was running Quizlet Live, you have the definition side, which shows you the same word. It shows you the few words at the top. And then the students have to figure out which student has the right collocation that goes together with that. So it works very well with almost all of them: learn, flashcards, write, match, gravity. Gravity actually works pretty well with that, because again, you have, as long as you have it set to answer with term, you have the 3 words floating down and they have to type in the word that fits best with that. And so that's one of the things that I have used quite a bit with my students. They really like the collocation thing. If any of you are wondering where I pick up collocations, because sometimes this is one of those difficult things, there's a website called Learning Collocations. It's actually from a university out in New Zealand. And so again, if you just type in the word and you get your collocation, and what it does is it uses Wikipedia to try and match up. You can also use other corpus, but in this particular case, what I really like about it is it uses all of Wikipedia and it tries to find the collocations that go together with that. So here we are. I just chose the top ones that came out of that. All right, so that's where I have, for example, with collocations. Other one I use a lot with is the diagrams. I really like the diagrams for different purposes. So I'm going to give you the most obvious one, and then I'm going to talk about some creative ways in which I've done that. And so the obvious one is you take an image of a typical scene. So this looks like from an IKEA catalog type of thing. And then what you do is you just tap on any of the areas that you want to review for terminology for that, and then you type in the term. I like to add the audio function to it as well too, so that students can hear the pronunciation. I just wanted to put a little note out there. So I was talking with Claire about this the other day, and I was saying, you know, it'd be really nice is if you hover over the term when you have the image up, and they would have the audio would appear as well. And what was really funny is we were on Zoom and we were talking back and forth, and Claire just grabbed her pen and wrote it down. And I just wanted to say that that's one of the things I really like about Quizlet as well too, is that it's a group that really wants to make their product better, and they're constantly listening to what teachers have to say. And so if you have any ideas about what you might want to do to improve Quizlet, you can talk to them and you can actually say, hey, this is some ideas that I have. I've been using it. I would like to see this happen. And you'd be surprised at how quickly they will respond. Sometimes they can't do it right away. It obviously takes a lot more to do, but they do want to improve the product as much as possible. So if you do have ideas, share them along. That's the best way that we can grow as a community. So with the terminology, this works obviously well with all of the ones. You notice that it trims down in the diagrams trims down to only a few of the different learning modes. But one of the ways I was talking about, the creative way of doing this, was to actually use it for students to create almost like an interactive type of map. So just to give you an idea how that might work, if I go to Quizlet and I say create, and I've already downloaded something here, but I'll just show you what I mean. I just add a diagram here. I can actually go in here, and I've actually downloaded, I live in the Vancouver, British Columbia area, and so we have the transit map here. So I'm just going to open that up here. And they've taken this transit map, and then what you can do is you can have students kind of work on this, and they can actually click on points within the map, and then they can use the definition side to describe it a little bit. Now remember, they only have so much text that they can put, but in this particular case, if you wanted to do it as a teacher, you could also do this and then add the audio function as well too, and you can describe something with it, almost make it like an interactive map for them. And so this is one of those really cool tools that I think has a lot of options to it outside of just tagging a simple image and putting terminology, but you can actually take it beyond just terms. And I think that's the biggest thing for me with Quizlet is, yes, it's a flashcard set, but just like I do with any index card, even if it's just a paper one, I can do a lot more with it than just write a word on one side and terms on the other, or definitions on the other. I can actually have it do all sorts of things. Because with Quizlet too, I can also add images, just like I would be able to paste image onto or draw an image on a card. But the other thing is, of course, is the audio function. And so if you get into the teacher account, that allows you to be able to do a lot more with it. And so just think creatively, think like, how can I take a simple piece of paper, making it electronic, which is now shareable, and collaborate with students as well too on this to be able to then create something that's quite different than what you're used to. So just to give you an idea again how this works, so you can click on any spot, and then once you've done that, you can add your term and you can add your definition right here. So that's where we're at with that. I noticed there's sometimes some Q&A kind of appearing here. I'm going to have to try and go back afterwards with this because I keep wanting to have a switch back and forth between all of these questions and answers as well. well. So please bear with me. I'm going to try and get to those as we're going along here, but hopefully this will be, I'll be able to get to some of those as we're presenting. One of the other things I can also do is I like to take sentences and mix them up, because I'm starting to notice with my students they're having problems with word order and sentence structure. And so I take different forms, in this case, this would be the present simple, and allowing them to be able to then work with just words. So for example, subject, verb, object, or maybe in passive form, how they would work into the passive form. And what I've done is I just add words into a card. I take a sentence, I mix it up. And so then with this mixed up one, we have all of these, essentially a full sentence here. And then I put on the term side, again, not the definition side, the term side, I put the correct sentence. Now, what's really great about this one here is if I go back, if I go and I take the write mode here, I can actually, again, has the definition at the top here, and I can type out the sentence. So it works exceptionally well with the write function, but it also works really well if I go back here, and I can actually go into the gravity mode. And so with gravity then, what happens is basically the same as write, except I'm going to answer with the term again, which means the full correct sentence. And I can say, let's go and start the game. And then what happens is, as it starts to fall, you have the mixed up sentence. Now I have this set for medium difficulty, so it's obviously going fairly fast. And so it would have to be able to type fairly quickly. I would actually probably go back and I would set that so that would be at the slower mode. But the students can actually type out their sentences as well. It also works well with live, because again, with live, you get the definition, you get the mixed up sentence, and then they have the correct sentences. This works best if your sentences are fairly similar, so they use the same names, for example, or the same type of subject objects type of thing, because then they're trying to quickly figure out which is the correct form out of that, which one is the right one. So just keep going here. This is another one that I've done recently with my students. What I did is I have a reading listening class, and I wanted to do almost like a little audiobook with them. And what I did is I took a short story and I divided up the short story into different sections, fairly short sections. And in each section, there was one term that I wanted to review with them or introduce to them. And so in that, I just show you some of the terms. For example, this is a short story. We'll go to my list here. I'll scroll down. So I had some of these terms here, and it was an older short story, and we were just reviewing that. And so it has the word, and it has the definition, just like normal. And then what I did is, instead of having the text here reading the definition, what I did is I actually spoke out, I recorded myself reading that section of the story. And then what they do is they can see the word, hear the word in context, and they can see the word and definition on the card. So as they scroll through the flashcards, they actually have the entire short story broken down into different sections, with each section having one new vocabulary word or one word to review in each of those sections. And so if they listen to the words in order, don't have this in shuffle, but you have it in order, and they go through their flashcards, they can actually hear the short story in order. To give you an example of how that could also work in other subject areas, I just grabbed this from NASA. They have a series of NASA Knows, which is this grades K to 4 series. And I had this thing about clouds. And you could take something like this, for example, about clouds, if you're teaching about clouds in your class. And then you could actually, in each section, again, the audio recording can only be up to 30 seconds, so you don't want it to be too long. But you break down into a different section, find out one term that you like to cover in there, put that as your term and definition. And then in the definition side, do an audio recording of yourself reading that section. And then they get the proper inflection and they get the proper intonation as well too, so they get natural form for that. One of the other things that I also do quite a bit is I use Quizlet as my way of getting around having to cut up little pieces of paper all the time. It's terrible for language teachers. We do this all the time. We end up photocopying a bazillion of these cards. We cut them up into little pieces. Sometimes we laminate them and we have them stacked all over our offices. And they take up an immense amount of time. And so I'm trying to totally get away from that. and just have my students have a set of the cards themselves. And how do I do that is, of course, I just, instead of me creating little cards, I actually use it as a Quizlet set. So I create a Quizlet set, and then I have a blank board game. To quickly review how I do this, the symbols that are on here, they roll the die, they land on the space, they have to answer one of those. So one person logs into Quizlet, goes to that Quizlet set, they have it on their phone in the middle of the table, and that becomes the Quizlet set for, or the card set for that entire group. Then they go to the next thing, the person rolls a die, goes to a space, if it's blank, they answer one. If they land on the telephone, they can ask a friend, they can ask somebody else. If they land on the back arrow, they have to switch spots with somebody on the board. If they land on this one, the hourglass, they have to wait a turn. And if they land on the one that has two, they have to answer two questions. And then it's the first person to get to the finish. And so it's just a quick way of recycling a blank board game, but you can make it as complicated or as simple as you want, depending on the Quizlet set that you give them. I gave the link for the blank board game if anybody wants to print that off, but you could also just make your own. Last one I just want to quickly review, just because of time here, is Taboo. For those who don't understand the game, Taboo, which is when you can buy at the store, is you have a word, you have to get everybody else to say that word, but you're also given a list of words that you're not allowed to say. And so you can't say the main word, and you can't say these other words or any forms of them, and you have to describe it to everybody else. So with Taboo, you can also do that in Quizlet. How do you do that? Well, one of the ways you can do that is on one side, you have the term that you want the other group to say, or the rest of your team to say, and you have the list of the words that they're not allowed to say as well. And in the options, what you do is you say answer with both, and then what you get is you have the list of everything right there. And then what they can do is they can pass around a tablet or a phone around, and so then you have one person sitting next to another one, and that other person makes sure that you don't cheat. So you don't say any of the words that are on the list, and they have to describe. And this is a really great way in language classroom for students to review saying relative pronouns. So they say things like, this is a thing that you have to, that you use to kind of get information by using your eyes, and you flip pages and all that type of stuff. And so again, they can't use any of these words, so they have to try to use some other ways of describing it. And so that was really fast overview there. I'm going to try and see if I can get to the Q&A now and see where we're at with this. So yeah, where are we at? So going back quickly, you had some questions that were here about the blank board game link. Again, if you go to that Quizlet, quizlet.nathanhall.ca, that'll get you a list there, and then you can click on the board game that's on there, and it will take you to a PDF version you can download and print. Where are we at here? So some other things about using...
Hey, Nathan, we'll also come in and jump in to help you out.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good, because I'm like quickly trying to read these, like, what?
Help me out.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
You're asking about recording a video, including a definition term instead of using a photo. No, there's no video function that's within Quizlet at this point. The audio and the photo would be the only option that you have with that. So, where else are we at here?
Cool.
Did I answer most of these? I'm not sure.
Yeah. We've got Stephanie here, I think, is going to jump in with some other questions as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Hey, guys. I'm Stephanie. I'm on the user operations team at Quizlet. If you've written into Quizlet, it's possible that you've talked to me. Yeah, I wanted to share a little bit more about adding videos to sets. So at this time, while it's not possible to add actual videos, you are able to upload GIFs that are 3 megabytes or smaller. So we actually have several users who have already done this. And I believe Amalia posted this in the...
Sure, I'll share the screen and show where we have that actually.
Sure, yeah. So we have a user who's uploaded quite a lot of GIFs for specifically ASL. And that user is Lane_Siebold, as you can see on the screen here. What's really cool about this is she's actually done this on many topics. And the one we're looking at right now is World History, Ancient Greece. And you can see the GIFs that she's actually uploaded about some of the topics on this subject. So on King Philip and the Empire. And then you can actually, I'll zoom in and see if I can click on this to zoom in. And it looks like that might even be one of her students that she's recorded doing the motion for this. So not yet possible to upload videos, but you can upload your own GIFs. So, yeah. And I wanted to, there was another question that I saw. Jane had asked that all of her vocabulary words are in keynote presentations, and she wanted to know if there's a way to copy that information into a set or if she had to like retype everything. And I did want to share that we do have an import tool when you're creating a set. So when you go to create a set, there's this text here under the set title where you can import from Word, Excel, or Google Doc, etc. So when I select that, it's going to give you a field, and there's a couple of different ways that you can copy and paste your content into the set. This is currently separated by a tab, but if you had like a CSV file, for example, you could switch it over to comma separated values, and you can basically copy large amounts of text straight into this, and then that's going to quickly generate your set for you. So if I wrote this out like so, you can see that they're starting to appear as terms and definitions below. And so I could paste hundreds of terms and definitions just straight into this text box, and those terms and definitions would auto-populate my set. So it's a really great way for me to quickly import and generate that set. Let's see. Looking at some of these other questions, and I do apologize. I know we have a lot of questions coming in, so we're trying very hard to pick out those ones that are super relevant to this session.
There's been a number of questions, this is Laura again, about if it's possible to remove certain parts of Quizlet. So teachers are wondering, maybe I only want my students to play Gravity on Tuesdays, or I only want them to do the test feature on Fridays. Can I turn off the other modes? And the answer to that is no. So all of Quizlet study modes are there, and there aren't any ways to remove certain study modes for certain students at certain times. So, we've seen teachers do interesting things like ask all of their students to do a round of tests and then require them to show their score, like hold up their iPad or their Chromebook, and the teacher can go around and check on the score. So we've seen different ways of sort of handling that situation, but there isn't a way to only have certain study modes show up for certain students on certain days.
Awesome. Okay. And BW asks, does Quizlet differentiate and offer various accents of English? Right now we just have, while I'm projecting here, I'll click into this. We have both Great Britain and American. So I think this might actually be just for the apps. So if your phone is natively set to American English, the TTS or text-to-speech accent that will come forward will be with an American accent. And if the app is set to British language, then the accent will be that way as well. I think that if you are on the website, you would actually need to go to your settings and change it there to make that change on the website. So this is English USA. I could select English UK, and then the text-to-speech accent would be in the British UK accent. Still looking at some of these questions. Some people asked if we would send a recording of this session. We will be sending a recording of all sessions out to you guys after we wrap this up. So if you feel like we're moving too quickly, or if you've missed something, or if you want to rewatch some of the things that you've seen here, we'll absolutely be sending out a recording of this session to you. Deb Suzadale asks, are all of these features available with the free version? That's a great question. So some of the features are available for free, for example, uploading gifts, as we discussed, but some of them, or sorry, my mistake. This is actually, uploading gifts is available with the upgraded teacher version. So Audio recording, doing custom audio recording is a paid feature with Quizlet Teacher, as well as uploading your own images. We do have the basic text-to-speech available with the free version, and then Quizlet actually does have a very large free photo gallery that you can use. So when I go to add an image, it will basically search based on my term, and these images are all available on Quizlet for free. And you can just select that. If I want to upload my own image, then that is an upgraded paid feature.
And we'll have a session later in the day all about the different features of having a Quizlet teacher account, so you can learn more then about what those specific features are.
I see a question from Ellen. She says, if a study set can be imported from Word or Excel, can it be exported also? That's a great question.
Is a great question, and it's absolutely true. So you can export a set. I'm going to quickly go to find a fuller set to export. So from the set page, if you select this More menu represented by the 3 dots, you'll have a couple of options here, including combine. So I could combine this set with multiple other sets, but then you also have this export option. So it's very similar to the import option. I can tell Quizlet how I want to export my set. Do I want to, between the 2 values of term and definition, do I want there to be a tab, a comma, or I can even add something custom. So I can select this and say there's a dash between them. I can say there's an equal signs between them, any value that I want to insert there. And so then basically it's going to generate it in that text field below. And I can copy the text and then paste it into something or modify it in a Word document or word processor. And then if I wanted to, once I get it the way that I want it, I can actually import it back in. So if you don't feel comfortable editing the set on Quizlet in the way that we present it, you could actually just pull all of the text straight out of that set, bring it into a Word document, make modifications, and then bring it back in with the import. Great question.
Nathan, there's a couple of questions asking you to go over the Taboo game again. Can you explain it one more time for some folks who wanted to see that second time?
Yeah, that went rather quickly, but again, I'll try and write out more detailed instructions on the website, but basically it works like this. So in the game of Taboo, for those who don't know, you have a main word, you divide up into 2 groups, and so one group is, in this particular case, waits until the other team is done. One person on the one team gets a card, and on that card it has a word, and it has 3 other words or 4 other words, depending on what you want to do. And in that particular case, what you do is, if I get the card and I have the word, I cannot say any of those words, and I can't say any form of those words. And then the other team, they'll keep an eye on me to make sure I'm not cheating, and I try and get the rest of my teammates to say the main word at the top. And so with Quizlet, I just use the term side for the main word and the definition side for the words that you're not allowed to say. And then in flashcard mode, I just say view both. So on the phone or whatever, they can see both. And they have a timer or whatever, and they have to go around and try and say that. So then once you either get your team to say it or time runs out, you then pass to the next team, they switch to the next card, and then they try and get their team to say the word that's on the card. There are lots of instructions for how to play Taboo online. You can kind of do a quick check for that type of thing. But the basic idea is you just set up one word and words that are related to it, and you're trying to get students to use their expanded kind of use of the language to be able to get around not saying those particular words, but getting other students to say it. And it's just a really great way of reviewing vocabulary and grammar and things like relative pronouns and all that type of stuff. So it's just a fun way of playing. And it requires nothing more than a Quizlet set and a phone, and that's it. And a timer if you want to put a timer. That's about it.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all we have the time for then in this session. I want to thank Nathan once again for sharing those super creative and awesome ways that he uses Quizlet in his classroom. We really appreciate you jumping in all the way from Canada. And so stay tuned, everyone, for our next session, which is going to be all about Quizlet Live. We're going to take a quick minute break before then and just kind of get settled. And we'll be back in like a couple of minutes. Thanks again, Nathan.
Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.